Now we see where the inspiration from the Ben 10,000 introductory episode lies. We skip ahead from the moment of Kevin fighting off Vilgax to the aftermath where Ben is checking up on a Kevin who's unresponsive and then looks up to see Vilgax in pieces like Ben 10,000 vaguely explained. We never see this sequence play out in full, and I think that helps this scene maintain some of the intrigue that it held previously. Here we see the running gag continue of promotional images with Ben's face being littered throughout the scenery of the movie. This scene with Ben and Azimuth is pretty interesting because it went through a few different iterations. One version took much more from the past series with Ben and Azimuth arguing back and forth in a more comedic fashion. One version had Grandpa Max and Gwen contribute a few lines here and there, but at some point I realized that the scene following the flashback needed to maintain that dramatic weight. I heavily prioritized balancing drama with comedy here, and the more comedic versions of this scene took a lot of the punch away from everything Ben's feeling right now. It also serves to develop their relationship as Azimuth is past the point of bickering with Ben like he's a child. He's a grown man now and Azimuth treats him as such. Azimuth coming from a more understanding angle here also gets through to Ben a lot more than if he were to yell at him. He sympathizes with Ben and relates his current dilemma to his own past conflicts of pushing away the ones he cared about. There's also a shot panning to Tetrax, who also shares a similar arc to Ben. This scene was a late addition but was incredibly important and shows Ben finally opening up genuinely to Gwen for the first time. Ben makes the point of Gwen wanting to live in the past and have things the way they used to be, and in a way he's right, but also being a bit hypocritical as a part of him is living in the past too. Ben has become very jaded by the hero life. The guilt and fear he carries has made him torture himself by carrying the weight of the universe on his shoulders alone. Gwen has done her best to try and help Ben, but here she's confronted with the possibility she's trying to bring the past back and is struggling to move on herself. As Ben is busy worrying about himself, he doesn't even really consider the fact that after he left, Gwen was left on her own for a decent length of time, so his comment here was probably more impactful than he realized. Max finally takes the initiative to follow up on Gwen's pleas and calls Ben for the first time in a long time. Opposed to Gwen, who fears losing Ben entirely, Max has previously been hesitant on trying to go after him. As Ben has grown and matured, Max has started looking over him less and is trying to let him make his own decisions, but is realizing that he can't let Ben cut himself off from everyone and deal with his issues on his own as much as he wants him to make his own decisions. This fan drawing here of Ben, Gwen and Kevin was actually made by my little brother for the movie, and I thought it would be nice to add it in to show my appreciation. This whole scene serves to give Ben at least a bit of closure as he finally gets to talk with Kevin through Gwen's mind link. We hear Kevin for the first time in present day, but he doesn't just show up physically out of nowhere. We never see how he looks or where he is because I wanted to leave it ambiguous for now and explore it more in future. When planning this entire scene, I also realized, after I took a step back, that an audience member watching this movie may come to the conclusion that Kevin died, and I wanted to just make sure everyone knew that that wasn't the case. This talk from Kevin is ultimately the final push Ben needs to stop closing himself off. It won't reverse anything or change anything in the grand scheme of things, but it acts solely as a bit of reassurance that everything is gonna be okay, something that everyone needs. Now that Ben's mind is clear, he can start reassessing the current situation. At this point he knows the Vilgax on Primus was an android, and during his last encounter with Vilgax he was after the Metromorph armor, so Ben hacks the Plumber's CCTV once again to see its current security, and the one detail that pieces it all together is the scar on the supposed Plumber's face that matches the one he remembers leaving on Vilgax. Okay, so at this point all the pieces have fallen in line. Now Ben has to convince Gwen to come with him to Plumber's base without specifically outing what he knows with Plumber's badges around that could let Vilgax potentially hear. But before that he has to finally let Gwen in and remove the emotional barriers. He explains how what happened on Galvan Prime left him with the feeling of powerlessness. I think this is all encapsulated very well when he describes how despite all the power he holds he still feels powerless. He feels that with all his power he shouldn't have to cost the lives of others. This sent him into a full-on crisis for a few years. We then bring back the forces of the universe bringing his together line when he describes coming back. He puts their reunion on the universe itself, but despite the constant pushback, deep down Ben wanted to return. A part of him wants to come back, but the fear gives him cold feet and makes him relapse on the idea. For the first time in this story, Ben not only accepts Gwen's help, but is actively asking for it, which supports the message of him needing her as its ultimately or along with the help of Max, who stops Vilgax in the end. Of course, it's great to have moments like these where the characters, specifically with hard, competitive personalities, meet. You can also tell here the Manny is a lot bigger compared to the past series, which did lead to some complications in fitting him and other characters in frame, along with the issues with logistics of him fitting in ships etc. But I feel this serves better for variation in the size of the characters and also to complement that competitive and hardened personality mentioned earlier.